Today in Club 904, we have noted Florida man, the one and only. This is football. Omaha Productions, ESPN Zone, Kevin Clark, noted Florida man. We're going to discuss not only the Jaguars' move just for 2027 to Orlando, while the stadium of the future is being built in Jacksonville, but also his perspective, the national perspective of the Big Cats heading into the 2026 season. Plus, Kevin has some special news out of the Big O, out of UCF territory we're going to discuss as well, and maybe an Orlando Magic hot take or two. Let's get after it here on this fine Tuesday in Club 904. What is going on, party people? As always, Mia O'Brien, excited to be with you in our new time slot on Action Sports Jack's 24/7 network. For those of you joining us from somewhere else outside of Duval County, maybe even Orlando, perhaps, we are the CBS Fox affiliate on the terrestrial TV side, but of course, you get Action Sports Jack's wherever you have YouTube, X, Twitch, whatever your social media, your video platform of choice may be. As always, all episodes of Club 904 are not only interactive, leave comments, leave questions for Kevin Clark, for myself. We will address them throughout the course of the program, but also be sure to like and subscribe to our friends at the Action Sports Jack's 24/7 network. All right, I promised this guy we're going to get him out of here in about 20 minutes time. So let's get after it. Let's welcome in a newcomer to Club 904. Oh, not Dan Griffiths. He's not with us today. It's Kevin Clark of Omaha Productions, ESPN, and he's rocking his Magic hat. He is a proud Florida man. Kevin, can't thank you enough for hopping in with us. And you know what's funny is I reached out to you about a week and a half, 2 weeks ago, not realizing that the Orlando announcement would actually happen the day after the owners' meetings, which you were out in Arizona for. And so perfect timing to rep your home city, correct? Orlando is the home city?
Downtown Orlando is the home city, fairly close to Camping World Stadium, the Citrus Bowl, probably 2 or 3 miles. So been to a lot of games in there. Actually saw, I'm trying to remember, I don't remember the year. Maybe it was Warren Sapp's rookie year. I saw the Bucks and the Dolphins played a preseason game there, but not a whole lot of NFL in that stadium. So very, very excited. I wish not the Jaguars, but I wish Orlando had an NFL team at some point. But this is the next best thing.
So let's start with that. We'll start with your Orlando origin story, because you do want to share with us about a very special scholarship that is being created at UCF for your dad. But let's start with this, your sports fandom story coming from Orlando. How do you believe Orlando will embrace the Jaguars in 2027, as they already have so far in 2026, being a native yourself?
Yeah, it's funny because I was on the Magic pregame show 2 weeks ago, and I was talking to one of the guys there who's an Orlando old timer, and I consider myself that as well. Just when I was born before the Magic was, even though I don't remember the expansion team being awarded. But what's funny to me, Mia, is the city of Orlando gravitates towards whichever of the Florida teams is doing best at that point. So the old timers, it's all Dolphins fans, because first of all, the Jags didn't exist. The Bucks barely existed. And when they did, they were awful. If you're 55 or something like that. So you remember the Shula teams, you remember Marino. And so it's all Dolphins fans. And then you get my generation, my brother, massive Bucks fan. Everybody went to high school with, if they had an NFL team in the state, massive Bucks fans, because it's Warren Sapp and it's John Lynch and it's Derek Brooks and it's John Gruden. Okay, that's my generation. And then I think Bortles had something to do with this, frankly, because of how much the city of Orlando just loved him. It's become more of a Jaguars town than it used to be. And I think that part of that is just, the fact that they've been better in recent years. They've won. They're more exciting. There's been more outreach. I mean, famously, I don't know if you remember this. Do you know that the local CBS affiliate had to apologize in Orlando?
Yes.
For showing the games, because they had to contractually instead of the Dolphins games. I do think for as much guff as the Jaguars took for that, that's bad optics. And I remember people talking about how ticked off they were about having to watch the Jaguars over the Dolphins in those lean years. It worked. And those games were on every single Sunday. And so I think this is a huge move. The Bucks, when I was a kid, did training camp in Orlando. They got away from that. Nobody has really tried to tap into the Orlando market. And so this is a huge move as far as that goes. Orlando is a massive city. I think it's one of the top 20 biggest cities in America. And I'm surprised at the lack of movement with some of these teams that trying to make a move like this. So I think the Jaguars moving there for a year is a huge, huge shot as far as that goes.
And to be clear, it is just for a year, folks. Since my sister and my brother-in-law called me last week, and they were like, "These headlines are misleading. Are the Jags moving to Orlando? Are you moving to Orlando?" And I was like, "No, we're not moving."
I think there would be probably a little more headlines and a little more debate if it was permanent. Yes.
Right. Exactly. While we're on the subject, why Orlando and UCF mean so much to you?
Yeah.
You are here not just to discuss the Big Ten, but you're here to discuss a very special cause as well.
Yeah, so wanted to shout out a scholarship that's UCF set up for my dad, the James C. Clark Memorial Fund. Links are up on my socials, and or just frankly just DM me if you don't see it. It's part of UCF's Day of Giving. So my dad was a history professor at UCF. He passed away in October suddenly, and we just wanted to memorialize him with a scholarship. He was such a force on campus. I didn't really, frankly, realize what a force he was on campus in East Orlando until he passed away. And I heard from so many people, not just his students, many of whom were football players, but also just, in the bookstore and in the food court and all that stuff. He was just such a presence on campus. And so far it's been 2 weeks since we launched this thing. The response has been overwhelming. We just want to keep it going. We have a service for the UCF community in 2 weeks that we're going to go down to just to memorialize him, and we want as big a number as possible for that scholarship. But already right now, we've had a bunch of 4-figure donations, we've had a bunch of $500 donations, and one thing, candidly, Mia, like that goes far because the state of Florida schools are pretty cheap. It's not like the Northeast, and it's certainly not like the University of Miami. And so, some of these 4-figure donations that are rolling along, I mean, that's a semester's worth of tuition for some of these guys. So it's going to be cool. It's for people who are history majors at Florida. And my dad, the most important thing, you asked me why UCF's near and dear to my heart. First of all, my dad started teaching there when it was nothing. I was on a UCF podcast 2 weeks ago, and I told them when my dad started teaching, and that person, the host, was there, and they were like, you could count on 2 hands the amount of buildings there were. Now it's a massive school that went from Division I AA, or maybe in Division II 40 years ago, to the Big 12 and to the Fiesta Bowl and to national relevance. And so my dad, plausibly, he got one of his degrees at Florida, was a Gator, but he wasn't that into it. He was a UCF Knight because of what that school meant to him. And I'm a Miami Hurricanes fan. If Miami and UCF played, I'd root for Miami, but any other time, UCF is going to get a hearty nod from me because my dad really cared about the growth of the school, and it's an important part of our family.
I know some of our listeners do listen to this podcast in audio only form, so be sure to go to Kevin's socials at by Kevin Clark on X. I believe Instagram as well is also by Kevin Clark. Yep. And head on over there so you can find the link to donate. And again, support, the Orlando community, the UCF community, and of course, a really great cause, especially those students who are in need, and especially those students who we hope maybe will become Jaguar fans, perhaps, by virtue of the Jags playing down the road. Although, again, not playing at the bounce house.
There it goes.
Playing at Camping World. So it all is interconnected, and I will be saving time for the Orlando Magic hat that you are rocking.
Oh, of course.
But
I do want to say, between Bortles and what Mike Sims Walker, probably way before your time, was the UCF guy who ended up being a Jaguar. Like there's a nice little connection there. And the one thing that speaks to it, like 20 years ago, if you had said that the Jaguars were going to pick a guy 3rd overall and he was going to be such a popular guy in Orlando that he would get people to be Jaguars fans, you would not have believed it. And even though it's Trevor Lawrence now, it's the UCF is such a big part of the Orlando community that really did matter. And I think that's probably, I've never asked the Jaguars about this, but I'm guessing they saw a huge uptick in Orlando once the Bortles effect happened. And I think people pretty much stayed around, and they'll get rewarded now for that 2027 season.
As I mentioned, you were in Arizona last week, Kevin, for the owners' meetings. I know you talked to a whole slew of GMs, owners, coaches, lots of folks out there, boots on the ground in Phoenix, Arizona. And so, big picture, tell me this, the perception of not just the Jaguars and their stadium of the future and the 2027 season spent in Orlando, big picture of the Jaguars coming off of year one of Liam Cohen, James Gladstone. What would you say your perception and the perception of the league is right now?
I think everybody's high on the Jaguars. I think that division is so weird because you could plausibly make a case for anybody this year, by the way, whether that's the Texans and their fatal flaw being quarterback, which we didn't see coming at all, whether that's the Jaguars and them taking a step forward. I was actually I was talking to someone the other day. This is kind of off topic about the playoff game, because I had a clip about just kind of taking the profit and taking the easy plays. I think that if the Jaguars had just kept running outside on every single play, they would have beaten the Bills. So I don't know how much consternation there is about that play calling in,
there's
in the playoff game.
Okay, and Bashal Tootin had 4 carries for 40 yards
just
or
keep
something
doing
like that.
Just keep doing that. If it works, just keep doing that. But it was off of Kevin Stefanski clip where he was basically just saying the way that modern defenses are, you can just take the easy run over and over and over again. And so we got into a debate about the teams that don't do that. Maybe the Jaguars didn't do that. But I'm a firm believer in a coach like Liam Cohen isn't going to make the same mistake twice, isn't going to have a apocalyptic fourth quarter play calling like they had in playoffs. But I think that's in a weird way a point in their favor. Like the fact that they could have beaten one of the best teams in the NFL in a playoff game, and it was only year one. They're ahead of schedule. And so looking at that division, the Titans are going to be better. What are the Colts? I have no idea. Are they going to be able to tread water until Daniel Jones gets back? I have no idea. They have a bunch of talent at the other positions. Is everybody going to get fired? I don't know. It can just go in so many different directions. But I love the core. I love Liam Cohen. I was so impressed with everything that he was able to do in year one. I've not interviewed James Gladstone, but I've met him at these events. He seems very thoughtful. Everybody in Los Angeles just freaking raves about him. He was doing everything down there. He was a chauffeur. He was, a driver, whatever. He was a chief of staff or whatever it was. He did everything there, and he truly rose up the ranks from the time in St. Louis to LA, and they just think the world of him there. And that's a place that obviously, if you have their endorsement, there's a lot in your corner, right? And so I don't love letting Devin Lloyd go, but I understand obviously the 5th-year option and how expensive that was going to be, and kind of you're on the fence about paying that position a premium option. I get it, but I thought he was really great at a position that you kind of need. You kind of need a linebacker who can operate in space in 2026. So I don't love that, but the Travon Walker deal was awesome. Lock him up. So
you are a Travon defender, Kevin.
I'm not. Well, it's funny. Mina Kimes and I were doing NFL Live when this happened, and she made the point that I would have made, but she got to it before me. Travon Walker, his fatal flaw is not being Aiden Hutchinson, but that doesn't mean you have to be out of the league, right? That doesn't mean there's a lot of daylight. I think a lot of times
that's the worst thing that we could say about you. I don't know.
Right,
I think that's okay. It's a high bar.
It was a bad pick, but that doesn't mean he shouldn't be on the team. It doesn't mean he can't stop the run. It doesn't mean that in certain situations he can't be, an absolute animal off the edge. Josh Hines Allen, again, it's funny. It's all comparisons, right? He's not Aiden Hutchinson. He's not Josh Hines Allen. Okay, fine. What is he? He's a guy that's athletic, who's got the measurables, who can stop the run. He's important. He's an important part of that. If you want a weak link on the defensive line, go ahead, because there's a lot of bad teams who try that and they fail. Okay. I think there's probably 32 teams that would take Travon Walker if you hit the open market. And so I'm not a defender in the sense that I'm going to say that Aiden Hutchinson, that he's better than Aiden Hutchinson, or he's a program changer or whatever. But I think sometimes, this happened a little bit, kind of the same sort of phenomenon. This happens with a guy like Mario Williams or a guy like Jadeveon Clowney, where you take them high, and then they're not either the best of their position or those guys who are wearing gold jackets who are behind them. That doesn't mean you can't have a solid NFL career. And I think that sometimes perception, what I'm glad about with Gladstone and Cohen is they're not letting the perception derail everything. And they're taking the profit, taking the easy win and saying, we have this guy, he can play, let's re-sign him. You cannot build a time machine and get Aiden Hutchinson. It's over. What you can do is maximize this window and understand what your core is. So I'm all in.
In 2023, when the Jaguars went up to Pittsburgh, Mike Tomlin said number one on his scouting report in terms of game records was Travon Walker. And that surprised a lot of people. And that's why, to answer the point you just made, but also preface my next question, going back to the Devin Lloyd of it all, Travon Walker, in my estimation, and many of our listeners, is not Aiden Hutchinson in terms of a talent perspective, or Josh Hines-Allen, but he's also not asked to do the same things that Aiden Hutchinson is asked to do, because on third down, I fully expect, and we saw it in year one of Anthony Campanelli's system, for the first time truly in Travon's career, he will go inside consistently, kick inside on third down, because him rushing over a guard is just an unfair matchup, and that's great X's and O's by Camp, Cohen, and the whole staff. And so that's where then we go back to the Devin Lloyd of it all. How do you replace Devin Lloyd? But also, where do the Jaguars turn to in the NFL draft, where they do not own a first round pick in 2026? 56 is the first pick that they currently own. Where do you see, besides the obvious Devin Lloyd size hole, which I've been told by a lot of people that the expectation may not be, well, they're just going to draft Jacob Rodriguez. They're just going to draft someone who's going to instantly fill that spot. It may be solving that subtraction through the aggregate and beefing up along the front four, much like the Rams did once upon a time, in order to create enough pass rush that you don't have to rely on that second level.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've gone back and forth on this, and obviously the Jaguars, you mentioned it, they don't have a first round pick, so they're not certainly not going to see somebody like Sonny Styles. But I've been debating with people in the league over and over again with the value of a guy like Sonny Styles. I think a guy who can be an eraser in the middle of the field is necessary in 2026. I think you have to have him. I don't think there's any shortcuts to that. But I also think, and people have pushed back on it this way, there's a lot of off-ball linebackers who are available, Devin Lloyd being one of them, but they're available in the draft. They're available for cheaper, whether it's via trade or via free agency. There's just a lot of them because there's a lot of good athletes that are playing the linebacker position. So if you want to go out there and address that day two of the NFL draft, sure. But also, I think that you do need a veteran there. I don't think you can take the shortcut where you just say we're going to have an awesome front four. We're going to rob Peter to pay Paul. I just don't think you do that at the linebacker position anymore. I think you do need. I mean, obviously, everybody wants the Fred Warner prototype, right? And not everybody can get it. But I do think you're going to need a linebacker who can cover guys. And so I'd expect the Jaguars at some point to take a guy in the draft.
Yeah, I just look at the Nate Landman of it all. And I know that's one of Mina's favorites as well. And so that's where looking at what the Rams were able to do, and obviously they've paid him now after finding him on the scrap heap in Atlanta. Yeah. I just wonder if Jacksonville goes a similar route and then instead looks to getting Kobe Turner,
And one thing about the linebacker position in particular, so I've talked about this a bit with like this, the how deep the drafts are now, because everybody's staying in school forever because of NIL, or they're developing, or they're using the portal. And like a guy like Kyle Lewis from Pittsburgh, 6'10", 220.
Yeah.
He's going to go in the third round. Louis Riddick, and maybe he was a bit of, he's from Pittsburgh, he's a Pittsburgh guy, whatever. Louis Riddick said he's Derek Brooks. I'm saying, oh, okay, that sounds good to me. And I just think that, again, with off-ball linebackers, it's a little bit like wide receiver now, where you can get these athletes day two, even early day three, and they're not 100% guaranteed, but they have certain skill sets where they can play almost right away and they can show you something. And so that, to me, is also why it's advantageous, is that you can just say, hey, this is a position we can attack in the third round and still maybe find a guy who can start for us by the second half of the season.
There is a story behind why you are wearing an Orlando Magic hat. Given the Magic's last month or so, I won't ask you for a take on the actual basketball team. But with that said, because there's a story to be had with that hat, I'm going to pair those two things together before we let you go. Biggest need in your estimation for the Jaguars, because I've heard from a lot of national folks, they'd like to see them try to improve their offensive line, which may or may not have something to do with your hat. And maybe that is something that I think in a vacuum we'd love to see, but knowing the contracts they have on the books, I just don't see it happening in this upcoming draft cycle. But again, just from your national perspective, but also being a Florida native, what do you think right now is the biggest need for Jacksonville?
Yeah, so I'll tell the brief story
Yeah.
of my hat. I have a million hats right off camera, and they're all either golf clubs, Orlando Magic hats, University of Miami hats. I actually have one Yankees hat because I live in Yankee country, and I go with my son sometimes. But that's a very casual experience for me as far as being a Yankee fan. But I was interviewing a Texas A&M lineman right before I hopped on, and obviously Texas A&M lost to Miami in the playoff. And I just felt like it would be very jerky of me to wear a Miami hat and taunt this young man. So I did not do it. I put on the Magic hat for that interview. Now, with the offensive line, yeah. I mean, the thing, what's funny to me, again, you want to talk about deep drafts, like a tackle like Markel Bell from Miami. I saw him 16th on the board as far as just offensive tackles. He's huge. He's 6'9", like 380 or something. He's the biggest guy I've seen at that position in a long time. He's available and you can mold him. And so I think that, again, because of how deep these drafts are becoming, you can find second round, third round athletes at the offensive line positions that can really help. And so I'm always going to go. I always joke about this. Bring up Mina. We do a draft needs pod every few years. And I just do trenches and cornerbacks. That's it. I just do trenches and cornerbacks. Oh, do you have 5 awesome Hall of Fame offensive linemen? All right, let's switch to defense. Oh, do you have 5 of those? Okay, we'll go to cornerback. Like I just think that's how you win. I actually heard it from John Harbaugh last week. All he cares about is being the best in the league at offensive and defensive lines. And I think there's a bit of a Seahawks. If you look at the draft this year, there's a bit of a Seahawks effect where there's just so many of these guys in the trenches who are going to go first round. And it's so deep that there will be guys when the Jaguars start picking, but I'm always going to pound the table for more offensive linemen.
Well, if you're going to say cornerbacks, then we'll leave you with this. Is Travis Hunter playing corner or wide receiver in 2026?
Yeah, so I go back and forth on this to cite another TV teammate of mine, Dominic Foxworth. We've actually had a lot of debates about this. So I think it should be cornerback because I just think there's less good cornerbacks than wide receivers. I think that, for God's sakes, just draft an LSU or Ohio State guy and somehow you have an all-pro. Like, I don't even know how it works anymore. You just go and you say, okay, we just drafted the best guy from Ohio State. Okay, cool. He's a first-year Pro Bowler. It seems to be recession-proof. With cornerback, it's a inexact science. Guys bust all the time. If you know you're going to have a high-level cornerback, I'd play him at high-level cornerback. Now, Dominic Foxworth's point, which, again, he's a former NFL cornerback. He knows more than me. His point is that you can scheme a cornerback out of the game. You can just not go to his side, and you can throw to a wide receiver every single play if you wanted to. So he has more of an impact on the game. To me, taking away one side of the field is pretty valuable, and what you can do on a defense is pretty valuable. So if he's good at both, I would major him in corner, minor him in offense, just a couple of packages, red zone stuff, maybe a couple of deep shots a game, whatever. But I would always want him to be a cornerback just because I just feel like supply and demand is the name of the game in this sport.
Kevin, you asked for 20 minutes. You got 20 plus minutes, and we appreciate your time. Again, remind folks where they can check out the scholarship in your dad's honor at UCF.
Yeah. James C. Clark Memorial Fund at UCF. If you just Google it, it'll come up. It's part of UCF's Day of Giving, and then also on my socials as well.
Be sure to check it out by Kevin Clark. Appreciate you. What is upcoming programming schedule? This is football, just so that people can always be on the lookout.
This is football. We have Jason Light, and we have Panthers EVP Brant Tillis on tomorrow, and then I'll be on Get Up and NFL Live Thursday, Friday.
Hey, listen, there's always a Florida connection, so it may not be the Jags. It's Tampa. So appreciate your time, Kevin. Thanks so much for hopping in.
Thanks, Mia.
That is by Kevin Clark on X, Instagram, all the social channels. And, of course, you can check out his program. This is Football, powered by Omaha Productions and on ESPN. When we return, we will dive inside the numbers of that Travon Walker extension we were just discussing. Plus, we'll also look around the National Football League and much more when we return here on this week's edition of Club 904.
People helping people. It's at the core of what Alive Credit Union is all about, and it's been that way for over 70 years. From the start in 1954 to today, the mission remains to inspire financial wellness and give you a financially fit lifestyle. Alive Credit Union and its employees are committed to not only serving their valued members, but also our community here in Northeast Florida. I had a chance to see that commitment firsthand as Alive partnered with our Action Sports Jacks 24/7 team to bring you Armada men's and women's soccer broadcasts. Inside the 18, it is a shot, and it's a goal! Chloe Chivers. And that connection to the community continues with Alive Credit Union's support of the Police Athletic League of Jacksonville. Alive Credit Union's commitment to our community also involves serving the financial needs of all first responders through the recent merger partnership with City and Police Federal Credit Union. Join the community and become a member of Alive Credit Union today. Find out the many ways you can be inspired in financial wellness at alivecu.coop.
Most of us know how to throw. But you need to know what to throw. I'm not talking about footballs, baseballs, softballs. We're talking about those items you need to recycle. Republic Services explains it easy. Recycling simplified. 1. Know what to throw. When in doubt, throw it out. 2. Empty, clean, and dry those materials. It takes an extra minute, but it makes a big difference. And 3. Don't bag it. This makes the recycling process faster and more efficient. This is a look at the Republic Services North Florida Recycling Center. You can make this process even more efficient. By utilizing those 3 steps, Republic Services can help you become a better recycler in your home. Learn more at recyclingsimplified.com.
If you look good, you feel good. And the medical professionals here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics are here to make you feel your best. I'm on camera every week, and I have a confession to make. I'm not always confident in my appearance. Can you see my dark circles? Is my makeup highlighting my fine lines instead of covering them up? I question it all. So when I found out about the wide variety of procedures here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics, I knew help was just one appointment away. Medical Director Dr. Megan Deacon Casey and her board-certified physicians have been using the latest in cutting-edge technology for the last 10 years, giving men and women their personal confidence boost. From Botox, fillers, Morpheus 8, and so much more. The hardest part was figuring out what I needed. Thankfully, the medical team walked me through what would work best for me through a free consultation. Come look and feel your best with the team here at Ponte Vedra Vein and Aesthetics. Visit them at one of their 2 locations, either over in Ponte Vedra or on the south side.
Welcome back into Club 904. Our thanks again to Kevin Clark of Omaha Productions ESPN for spending the first 20-plus minutes of today's program with us. I see John hanging out in the chat here in Club 904. I know he's a big Miami fan, so I know he appreciated a Miami alum's insight, especially Markel Bell's name being spoken, as I know John is a big fan of the Hurricanes tackle, who, interesting to hear Kevin say he thinks he could be a day 3 pick that could blossom into a starter, because that is certainly a possibility, because he's a guy who was on a team that was the national runner-ups this year. But that's a story for another time. We do want to dive a little bit into, because we didn't get a chance to last week because the news had not come out yet, about Travon Walker's extension. Spotrac does not have the details of this contract up yet, which is rather interesting just because it's been about 6 days since that deal came to fruition last Friday afternoon. And so what we do know from Jeremy Fowler, also of ESPN, a $20 million signing bonus, $20 million option bonus in year 2, $75 million over the first 3 years of the contract, which of course totals $110 million, a 4-year contract, including $77 million of it guaranteed. Now, what's interesting, and the reason I bring up that it's not on Spotrac, what's interesting about it is I've seen notion from a lot of folks that immediately the assumption is that, much like Trevor Lawrence's deal, which did not kick in until after the season in which he played on the 5th-year option, that will be the case with Travon Walker's deal. That's not publicly disclosed. At least I haven't seen it anywhere. If anyone has, be sure to drop it in the chat. Would love to, verify that. Because right now, if you were to look at the Jaguars' active roster and the cap numbers for 2026, let's actually take a look at that while we're here. Let's flip it on over. So let's bring this up. The fun of live TV. Where is it? Where is it? I can't find. There it is. Okay, hold on. There it is. Okay. If you take a look, for those of you who are watching live on the various channels of the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network, if you take a look, Trevor Lawrence, the largest cap number. I know we did this exercise a few weeks ago, but it bears repeating now with Walker's deal officially on the books. Josh Hines-Allen, the second largest cap number. Trevor, $24 million. JHA, 23.4. Those 2 players alone account for 14% of the cap in 2026, followed by Eric Armstead. As I've told you guys, his contract's not being restructured. He is on the team in 2026 until proven otherwise. Foye Oluokun, the fourth largest cap hit at $17.1 million. That's 5.7%-ish of the cap. And then Travon Walker, the fifth largest deal as of right now, if he was to play on that fifth-year option at $15.196 million. And so that is where I look at these numbers, and I apologize about all the ads that are popping up. It's just, the way these websites work. That is where I look at that. And knowing, as Fowler reported, that there is $20 million in signing bonus, not just this potential season, but also in 2027. That is where I look at it, and I wonder if they're just going to throw the fifth-year option out. Because then if you're Travon, you're in line to cash in once again when you're 28, 29 years old with another extension. And I think for the Jaguars, it behooves the books themselves, let alone the team and the health and the opportunity to go out and add more players or pay more of your own with potential extensions for Brenton Strange and Parker Washington coming down the pipeline. If you can lower that number for Travon Walker, that's going to help everybody. And so it's not officially on the books yet. And so if someone does see anywhere that it is on the books, let me know. I see Hef says, did they restructure this year? Yeah, Hef, as of right now, it hasn't been publicly disclosed from what I can see and from what I've been told. I do want to note that we will have some availability later this week with the Jaguars top brass. And so maybe then there will be a little bit more clarity on the nature of the deal. But it is interesting just because part of why so many campaigned for Travon Walker to not just get paid because he's an asset to this team, but because by extending Walker, you then lower that number. If you can get some more cash flow, you can not only pay your own, but then I don't know, if you did want to swing a deal for somebody, then all of a sudden you have the flexibility to do so. And so I am curious when exactly we will hear what the nature of this contract is in terms of when it actually goes into effect. And so that's going to be something to monitor here in the days ahead. But again, I just got the note, so we can publicly say it, that you will hear from James Gladstone, Liam Cohen a little bit later this week. And so maybe we will get that clarity then. But Travon Walker's extension obviously is a huge deal. I want to go back to the cap once again, just because I do want to look at some of those other names in the top 10. And I know we ran through this exercise, I believe, last week in Club 904 or the week before, but it still bears mentioning again in lieu of, yes, when I referred to could the Jaguars swing a trade for someone, the obvious name that so many are clamoring for is Dexter Lawrence. And I have heard that they placed a call last year. I like to place a call and see if I could get $1 million, and I have placed said call. And so I do not fault James Gladstone if that was indeed the case, and he just wanted to gauge where the Giants stood with their premier nose tackle, who I know is not he's not a 3 technique, which is the Jaguars' arguably biggest hole right now on the roster, outside of linebacker, as Kevin alluded to, for those who believe that you need to replace Devin Lloyd with a similar eraser type, even though once upon a time, Foye Oluokun was the eraser to tell Devin Lloyd where he was wrong. We'll talk about that a different time. Point being, I understand Dexter Lawrence is a nose tackle, and you already have Devon Hamilton, who is a pretty darn good nose tackle, and he accounts for the 7th most percentage of your cap in 2026. And so why would you have 2 nose tackles? You wouldn't, which is why I don't know if the deal is ever going to come to fruition. The thing about Dexter Lawrence, I know he's not a 3 technique, but the thing is that he is an interior defensive lineman who can generate a pass rush. And while the sack numbers have been inconsistent, there's some seasons of 9.5, there's some seasons of a handful of sacks. I understand that, but this has been the biggest gaping hole since Jacksonville of 2017, 2018, trying to create an interior pass rush that can open things up for Travon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen. You are not moving Travon Walker inside permanently. You need to start getting it through your head that he is more Calais Campbell than he is Eric Armstead, for that matter, although I guess he was, once upon a time cosplaying as an edge rusher, thanks to Trent Baalke. That is where you have to understand that you are not going to solve the interior pass rush issues by just moving Travon Walker inside, because then who's setting your edge on the outside? Well, Danny Strigow and BJ Green are expected to take the next step, and certainly I would expect the Jaguars to address edge rusher 3 in some form or fashion, whether that is through the draft or another similar Emmanuel Ogbah signing, if for some reason they couldn't acquire another edge rusher in the draft. I do not believe that, we're just going to move Travon inside. You just paid him as an edge rusher. And so that is where, for me, I don't want to say that Dexter Lawrence is your only answer in terms of making a massive trade for an established interior defensive lineman. But that's why you have to at least discuss it, because he's one of the names that's reportedly on the block. And while he plays a position that you already have filled, I still think you have to explore it, because ultimately for this team to operate at the level that it wants to, those two guys on the outside need help. We've been saying it for how many years now? And that is where I think it just needs to be discussed. I'm not saying it's happening. I'm not saying it's imminent. I'm not saying it is a must for the Jaguars, but this is a front office that has been very forthright of they are going to explore every possible scenario. Back to the cap, just for the sake of running through it one more time. Walker Little currently the 6th most expensive contract on the books. That is why he is not going anywhere, in addition to Cole Van Lanen still recovering from the knee injury. And that is why, for those of you who think that they're just going to outright cut him, you are wrong. So again, Walker Little is number 6 in terms of most expensive contract. Ezra Cleveland is 8th. Patrick McCarry is 10th after his restructuring. That got his cap number down to 7.4. Therefore, I'd expect him to be on the roster, obviously, in 2026. He only came here last year, especially with that 5-position versatility. If Walker Little was to be dealt, again, I do not see that happening until at earliest week 1 of the season. And that would be if Cole Van Lanen is given a full bill of health a month and a half earlier. I just don't see it happening. If there is a trade, it wouldn't be until trade deadline, in my opinion. And I do think that if, to Kevin's point, you do draft a tackle on day 3 and you feel that that guy who has replaced Chuma Edoga on the opening day roster, but is ascending in a fashion in which he could be your swing tackle down the home stretch of the season, sure. Then if you want to make the move and you feel like Cole is very healthy, then yes, then you would clear some money as well, potentially. Ezra Cleveland, final year of his 3-year contract. Does Wyatt Milam step into that spot immediately? Is there someone else who either comes to the Jaguars through the draft? Is Cooper Hodges suddenly going to have the miracle recovery that we've all hoped and prayed for? I don't know. But I think that it is, and this is something I've come around to more and more as I've looked at the Jaguars' 2026 draft outlook, while also hearing people around that building say, we are not just building a team for 2026. We are also thinking about building a team for 2027. Well, in 2027, you're going to be without Ezra Cleveland. You could also potentially be without Walker Little and Patrick McCarry. And now all of a sudden, an offensive line that right now is already 8 deep, it's only 5 deep. And who do you have behind that starting 5? And that is where I do think there is potential, whether it's you draft a guy in the 7th and he's developing on the practice squad, or maybe it's someone who takes a medical red shirt a la Cooper Hodges, his rookie campaign. You do need to start thinking about that. And I appreciated the shout from Kevin too. Some other notes in the top 10 currently of the cap for the Jaguars and their situation. Again, Devon Hamilton is 7th. Travis Hunter is the 9th most expensive contract on the books for Jacksonville in 2026, $10.6 million. Would not expect that to be restructured. Of course, all the free agents from James Gladstone's initial free agency class, many of them, not all of them, but many of them have restructured their deals in order to free the Jaguars up some cap space in order to pay their upcoming rookie class. Let's hit some of your comments and questions before we take our final timeout. Thanks to Hef for hanging out with us, social as well. Hef says a lot of lazy takes around the Jacksonville area with the just moved Travon inside. That's why we're addressing it, brother. That's why we're addressing it, especially since this is our first show of Club 904 since Travon Walker. Well-deserved 4-year contract extension formally announced on Saturday. Paladin, thanks for hanging out with us in Club 904. Is there any chance Calais would come back? Oh boy, Hef, you should have known that I opened up the door for this. Would Calais come back on a team-friendly deal in a similar role to Smoot? I know he's older. Smoot played some on the interior. Calais would be more effective. Well, Calais would be more effective because Calais actually does play more of an interior role, if only on third down, and plays the big end. Smoot, yes, was playing. He was playing in the interior because it was either him, Austin Johnson, or Matt Dickerson. Like, that's who they had, because they lost faith in Mason Smith after a couple of bonehead penalties. He clearly was in the doghouse down the home stretch of the season. He's still on the roster. We'll see what happens there. They needed Smoot to play inside, and because he's a team guy, he said yes to it. And that is why I maintain, as much as, yes, I respect everyone who says linebacker, offensive line, those need to be your focuses. They, in my opinion, will, and again, we'll see what transpires here in the next 2+ weeks. But I just keep looking back to that Kobe Turner, Byron Young Rams draft class in 2023 and how they were able to find and double up on the interior guys on day 2. And I just think they're going to do it again. And by they, I mean James Gladstone. And that's where I don't think the Calais pipe dream for many of you fans here in Jacksonville comes to fruition. I also know that Calais moved his wife and 3 sons back to Arizona, to my knowledge, because the goal was last year was going to be the last hurrah. And then the Cardinals won 3 games. And I don't think Calais wants to go out like that, but also respect to wanting to go back to where he started his career. Time will tell, but it doesn't sound like as of now he is officially retiring or that's imminent. So I don't know. But the Jags did have him in the building 2 years ago, and he did not sign with Travon Walker. Maybe that's different with James Gladstone. From Social, I'm done with the mocks and speculation. Amen to that, brother. Although we will have one more mock draft live show coming up here in the next 2 weeks. And great point, Social. Not only did the Rams take Byron Young and Kobe Turner in 2023, they took Braden Fisk the following year. And also Jared Verse. Heard he's a pretty good player. Hef, I keep looking at Austin Barber, how similar he plays to CVL. Well, now you're just pulling at the heartstrings, man. Trinity Christian's own Austin Barber, for those of you who may not be familiar, Jacksonville guy, starting at left tackle for Florida the last 2 years. Austin did not receive an offer from Dan Mullen until the day before signing day 2020. Lifelong Florida fan. It was funny only because covering those teams for Verlin Dorminey's team on the west side, Marcus Burke got the Florida offer, and obviously his career in Gainesville has not been what he probably hoped it would be and many hoped it would be. And Austin Barber was like this afterthought. And of course, Austin Barber is now the one who may work his way into the 3rd or the 4th round of the NFL draft. And yes, I do see some CVL because I do think there's position versatility there. That was certainly something that, at least from my conversations with him when he was a senior in high school, I think that's what PJ Fleck in Minnesota thought about Barber's game when they were the initial team that was going to acquire his services out of high school before he flipped to Florida the day before signing day. So yeah, there's some CVL there. And again, part of why I bring up the Minnesota is he, as much as he played in the SEC the last 5 years, like he does play like a Big Ten guy, much like CVL out of Wisconsin. So I am curious, bring him home. I also go back to, and I've seen, some super sleuths on the internet have finally caught up on a certain Duke offensive lineman that I've been sitting here on this program and several others telling you guys, hey, you may want to check his Instagram. Like I saw somebody posted that last week, and I'm like, okay, we've been talking about this for like 2 months on Club 904, who also has 4 position versatility along the offensive line, and maybe he also has a tie to Duval. I think they go with a guy who is going to give them that flexibility, and it's not just because it's the best availability and that's the way to finding a starting role, is because if you can play more positions and you can be versatile, the Jags are going to be interested in you. I just think they don't know where their holes are going to be until they see how guys play this upcoming season who are counting such a large percentage against the cap. You guys are locked in on YouTube and on X, so keep those questions coming. We will address more of them. Plus, take a look around the league when we return. One more segment to go in Club 904.
See a pit? It ain't legit. When you hear that, you think Bono's Pit Barbecue, a staple in Northeast Florida now for 75 years. A place that feels like home with friendly service, a meeting place for friends, family, or business occasions. On the menu, the corn nuggets are a favorite in our house, but there's something for everyone. Sandwiches, platters, salads, sides, desserts, and family feasts. You see Bono's all over the place in Northeast Florida. You know, there are almost 20 locations in the Jacksonville area now, so stop on by, sit down, and dine in with Bono's. You can also take it to go. There are drive-thrus in many of the locations, and they have delivery options too. Just download the Bono's app to make things easy. I signed up for the loyalty program, and you can too, to get special offers. If Jacksonville is home, few things feel more Jacksonville than Bono's Pit Barbecue. Celebrate 75 years and many more to come. Bono's Pit Barbecue. If you don't see a pit, it ain't legit.
Choose your own adventure. It's not just a saying, but a way of life here at Cycles of Jacksonville. And whether it's 2 wheels or 4 wheels, at Cycles of Jacksonville, a great adventure awaits. With brands like Honda, Vespa, Segway, and Triumph, Cycles of Jacksonville has you covered with the inventory featuring a 60,000 square foot building. If 4 wheels is more your thing, check out the largest selection of Honda Talons in the entire county. No matter what you're looking for, Cycles of Jacksonville is going to have the selection you need. all with great financing and rebates. Plus, if you're active duty military, Cycles of Jacksonville will offer you 0% financing along with great discounts for military and first responders. And when you want to get off the road and set sail, Cycles of Jacksonville has you covered with everything you need to get on the water. So if you're ready for a great adventure, let Cycles of Jacksonville be your guide. Located off Atlantic Boulevard, or check out their website at cyclesofjacksonville.com.
Nobody but Nimnicht. Our family has purchased 6 vehicles from Nimnicht Buick GMC. The #1 Buick GMC dealer in Jacksonville has lots of inventory to choose from with their best price guarantee. Who gives you top dollar for your trade? Nobody but Nimnicht. Save up to $10,000 off select new GMC Sierras or get rates as low as 1.9%.
You know, I'm a truck guy. GMC Sierra, my trim level is an SLT. This one's an Elevation. Pretty good looking color as well. So here at Nimnicht Buick GMC, you have a lot to pick from. My father-in-law, he drives this, an Enclave, so I feel like that GMC in the family. 2025 is coming around the corner, which means it's almost time to close out those 2024s this summer.
You can schedule a test drive at NimnichtBuickGMC.com. And while you're there, check your trade value and customize your payment options. Nimnicht is there for you, even on Sundays. So, who has put in the most years and stands behind a better experience? The answer's simple. Nobody but Nimnicht. Your friends in the car business since 1941. GMC. We are professional grade.
One more segment to go here in Club 904 in our new time slot. Yes, that's right. And I know that Captain Full of Fishing, I think that Pulpo Fishing, whatever that is, your YouTube name. I know you're very excited. 2:00 now, Eastern Standard Time, Tuesdays here in Club 904 on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 network. Hopefully you'll be able to join us each and every week here at 2 p.m., bumping up from our 1 p.m. normal time. We've also got some other exciting sports programming in the works here on Action Sports Jacks. Hoping to share with you some of the exciting news here in the weeks ahead. As mentioned, I just got the email, so hopefully the Jags don't get mad, but since it's kind of been put out there, I don't feel bad saying it, that James Gladstone, Liam Cohen will be meeting with the media on Thursday. I don't know if that will be live streamed. I don't want to speak out of turn, but because of that, maybe we will get clarity, since I see Social just asked it in the chat. Maybe we will get clarity Thursday as to whether or not Travon Walker's deal actually begins in 2026, or if it won't kick in until 2027, and he would play this upcoming season on the 5th-year option. Because for those of you who joined us a little bit later, as Jeremy Fowler noted, $20 million signing bonus in that $110 million deal, but Travon also has a $20 million option bonus in year 2, $75 million over the first 3 years. And Fowler notes that as 2026 to 2028. And so that is where, from his reporting, if it's saying 2026, that would mean the deal does kick in this year, which would be great to just bring it full circle to our discussion here on the program today. Because as of right now, Travon Walker would be due $15 million against the cap because of the 5th-year option. And that's the 5th most money of anyone on the books for the Jacksonville Jaguars. And this is a team that's strapped for cash right now. And so part of why you would expend Travon Walker would be to lower that number. It is indeed like waiting for Christmas for the NFL draft to come around. We are 16 days away. Amen to that, boys. Very excited. And yes, when I was referring to a certain Duke offensive lineman, I was referring to Brian Parker. Well done, Social. Let's span the National Football League. Some news, some headlines that affect your Big Cats and the rest of the league. Kyle Pitts will sign his franchise tag and will report to Atlanta Falcons workouts in the offseason program. I bring that up alongside the report that Eli Stowers, the Nashville tight end, is being viewed as a wide receiver by some teams in the process, according to, this was what, Schefter, or it was Ian Rappaport of NFL Network, which is now owned by ESPN, but who cares? Who's counting, you know? I bring that up because Kyle Pitts, I know, has been the apple of many of your eyes since his Florida Gators days, because many of you are also Gators fans. Eli Stowers, the outstanding tight end for Vanderbilt. I think I said Nashville. I meant Vanderbilt. You know what I meant. Out of Nashville, Tennessee, is also a fascinating flex tight end. The Jaguars are not drafting one of those. They let Evan Ingram walk. They released him last year for a reason, not just because they wanted Brenton Strange to be their foundational tight end in this new age Jaguars of Liam Cohen and James Gladstone, but because they want tight ends who can truly be deceptive. You do not know if they are blocking or if they are splitting out wide, depending on where they are lined up on the field. I do believe, in my opinion, and we've said this week in and week out, the Jaguars will be drafting a tight end with one of their first 4 picks. I don't want to say that that's a lock, but that's as close as I'm going to get to a lock here on this program. I truly believe the Jaguars will go tight end at some point in time in the first 4 picks. It will not be Eli Stowers. It will not be one of these flex tight ends. It will be an inline blocker, a guy that can give them a couple of different looks. Timmy Devil, he has a dang good contract for him and the team. Okay, that's about Travon. Yes, that is correct. Other news from around the National Football League, while we are also answering your questions live here with 5 minutes to go on today's episode of Club 904. John Harbaugh speaking today in New York, the new head coach, of course, of the New York Giants, the former longtime coach of the Baltimore Ravens. Asked about Dexter Lawrence requesting a trade, he said, quote, "I'm not surprised by it. We will try to work through it. I think the prospects are high of him returning to the Giants. He believes that is what both sides want." Welcome to Negotiating 101. Fernando Mendoza will not attend the NFL draft, the first expected number 1 pick to not attend the draft since Trevor Lawrence, all the way back in 2021. He, of course, took in the draft in his hometown at his house in Cartersville. I think he was in Cartersville. I don't think he was in Clemson. But shout out to our friend of the pod, Logan Bowles, who was in attendance that day. One bit of news that went under the radar, but we're going to close with this because I think it kind of speaks to where the Jaguars might attack in the NFL draft. Avonte Maddox was signed by the Detroit Lions yesterday. Just a street free agent, maybe just a camp body. But at the same time, I believe he is a player who represents the Jaguars are not signing Band-Aid free agent fixes. I don't want to say that they were in the market for him, but I do think he represents a classic scenario that the Jaguars of years past may have signed that guy because, well, we just need a bunch of bodies. And I think it says a couple of things. I think it says that they are not only confident in Christian Braswell as depth at the corner position, I think it says they will draft a corner at some point. Obviously, it points to Travis Hunter playing more corner. And I think it suggests that the Jaguars may acquire even more picks. Maybe not all of those draft picks make the 53-man roster, but in terms of depth, they feel that they can find a way to acquire it either in the draft or via the practice squad. A couple other comments. PJ, can we free up money for Lawrence? I don't have any insight on whether or not Trevor will be restructuring or not, but hey, just throw that out there. Solbert, outside of Travon and Josh, out of these options, BJ Green, Strigow, who will have the most impact in terms of pass rush for us in 2026? I would think whoever the interior defensive lineman they draft at 56 or 81 is. That's my hot take. So they're Kobe Turner, if you may. Hef, they are also going to rely on priority free agents post-draft, most definitely, because you know that they will have guys lined up, much like they did Emmanuel Ogbah 1 year ago. Social, I remember Gladstone saying, we don't want vets standing in the way of young players' development. That feels like a really great place to end and put a bow on today's episode. Our thanks again to Kevin Clark of ESPN Omaha Productions for hanging out with us here in Club 904. Be sure to check out the scholarship that has been established in his dad's honor at UCF. Be sure you can donate if you do find it in your heart and if you have the ability to do so, because I know it really means a lot to him. And I know it means a lot to him that the Jaguars are going to be playing in his hometown of Orlando here in 2027. 1 year only. Just 1 year. So my sister called me and was very misled by a certain sports book's headlines. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us here in Club 904. As always, all episodes of Club 904 are streaming live and available on demand on the Action Sports Jacks 24/7 channel on YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. We will be back next week. Guests still to be determined. New time slot, 2 p.m. to 3 p.m. So make sure you keep it locked here. You set your notifications. I do know we're going to have our friend Jordan Reed, also from ESPN, at some point in time. Maybe it'll be next Tuesday. Maybe it's the following Tuesday. But we will react to whatever James Gladstone and Liam Cohen have in store for us here at Thursday's pre-draft availability and what it all means less than 2 weeks away from the 2026 NFL Draft. Until next week, we will catch you later.